Everyone. So today we're going to be doing this first MapReduce tutorial. And first you got to make sure to check that on Windows that you have the PuTTY application installed, or WinSCP, Oracle VirtualBox, and Cloudera. That'll look something like this here. This is the Oracle VirtualBox Manager here. And I have a couple other machines, but mainly you're going to want this Cloudera Quick Start VM right here, and we'll get that up and running. And essentially what you'll get is something like this, where you can see that we have terminals, I can use Eclipse, and I have access to Firefox for any internet needs I might need. So going through these and making sure this is installed per the instructions, and after reading the textbook, you can go ahead and start on part 1. And first we're going to copy this word count version 1.0 program right here. You could find that from this address. This is what that looks like. Basically, I'm just going to copy this whole program and open it up over here and Eclipse. And if you've never worked with Eclipse before, basically, in order to get to here, you're going to want to go to File, New, Java Project. I named my project Word Count. And I won't go through all of the steps necessary here, but I will show you kind of the process I went through. Once I create this project, what I need to do is I need to import the jar libraries. So I go to Libraries here. I'm going to add external jars. And this is coming from the file system, which is right here. Then I'll go down to User, the lib file, Hadoop, and clients. And here you'll see all of these jars that we need. These are all dependencies that we need for this application. So basically Shift, select all, OK. I'm going to add all of these, and then I also need to add the jar files from Cloudera, library file. And here we go. There's the jar files we need again. Once again, select, click, OK. And then normally we would click Finish, and it would create, much like you see here, this word count file. And what you're going to want to do to create this class right here, essentially you would just right-click on Source, go to New, and hit Class. And that's how you would create an empty class like right here. And all I did was basically copy and paste that information in here. I would save this, file save here, and then also once you're done with that, once the file is saved and the code's imported, you're going to export it as a jar file. And so we would click Next, and just to double check, we're going to click Java jar file, and then click Next. And from here I just named this, so I have word count 1 and 2 already done. I just used wcount.jar is what I used for each one. And once that's saved, we'll get out of here and we'll take a look. And that was instructions all the way through 4.8 and 4.9. So now we need to get this mammals book from the link that was mentioned above, and that's up here in this note. So if you copy that address and you go to that link, you'll end up on this page. And this is a pretty lengthy file, so you'll want to you can either select and scroll, or you can Control A or Command A depending on what you're using, and just copy that whole file and save it as a text. And there's a few different ways you do this. If you're not using the Cloudera and you're doing it locally, obviously you could just copy it to a text file. Or if you are using Cloudera, you can do vi and mammals.txt. And since I already have this file, I'll just do it this way, mammals2. And this will open up a text editor. And I would normally copy and paste in here, but since I already have the file, I don't have to worry about it. And basically from here, if you want to save, once you've copied and pasted, you would press Escape and then Shift and the colon key. That'll bring you down to the bottom of the screen right here. And then I would press WQ for write and quit. And that would bring me back. And now I have a mammals2 text file, but I already have my mammals file that I need. So from here, basically, we would go through, get our mammals book. We've done that. We need to execute this jar program that we've already created. And the command for that is Hadoop. If you go over here, so you can see what I'm typing versus what is on there. Hadoop, just so you guys can see it. Hadoop jar file name. So that would actually be our, so for me it was WCOUNT dot jar, and then we would run the class, which was word count, and make sure that this is whatever you name the class when you created it. Otherwise it won't run. It'll throw up an error. And so from here, then user, Cloudera, mammals, dot text, and we also need to specify where, once this file runs, once this program runs, where this information is ending up. So we want to go to user, Cloudera, mammals dot text, or excuse me, not mammals dot text. We want this to be word count version 1 output. And once we do that, we're going to hit enter and let this program do its thing. So what it'll do is it'll go through, it'll read the jar file, start running the MapReduce job. You can watch the progress of this job here, and I can kind of show you what that looks like a little bit later. Alternatively, what will happen is it'll actually show you down here where you're at as far as a percentage for the map portion and the reduce portion. So you'll see that map 100% will come up as my next item. And then once it gets to this, it'll do a bunch more code. And like I said, you can kind of see what this looks like if you don't want to look at a terminal the whole time. Basically, if I come over here, copy this address into the bar, you'll see that it's exceeded. It showed me the map and the reduce, how many was done. And then normally it would also show you a progress bar. If I was already kind of out of, if I went straight to this, it would show me progress. So our next step is to make sure that we have these files actually written to Hadoop. We're going to check that here with the list function. Hadoop fs-ls, that's the list function. We could see right here it was a success, and here is the file right here. That's my output file. And so now that we've checked to make sure that the files are created, next we're going to open the file in the output folder using kind of the similar syntax, but this time we'll add, instead of list, we'll use the cat, C-A-T, and basically go from here, and we're going to find the exact file. So as you can see here, part-r-12345 zeros is what we have. And as we can see, that's the same function as listed right here, 4.13. We're going to press enter, and this is just going to open up what was created. And you can see right here, I have a word count function ready to go. From here, I want to copy this file from HDFS to my local drive. In this case, I'm going to use the Cloudera VirtualBox, as you can see, as my local drive. So same thing. Essentially, I want to copy that. So this time, instead of the cat function, I want to get this file. From here, once I've selected the file, I need to designate where I want this to go. So this right here is where I would want that to go. So that would actually be home, home, Cloudera. And since I already did this earlier, I'll just rename this file as, we'll say, word count 3.txt. and obviously follow the naming conventions, word count, version 1.txt, and we'll just go from there. And it should be that from there, I've just saved this file onto my local drive. And you can find that here. This is the Cloudera home. If you go down, my file's right here. Cool. So moving from here, to move any file from Cloudera to the DSBA cluster, I need to use this SCP function. And essentially what that's going to do is that's going to connect you straight to that Hadoop DSBA site. So word count 3, we'll say, right? And I need to move that to the UNCC database. So DSBA Hadoop, excuse me, and .uncc.edu, and then I need to go to users, and username once again. And then from here, I press enter. And since I've already done it, I'm going to kind of hold off. But essentially, I would press enter, and that would transfer the jar, and that would transfer the file. And I would do the same thing for my jar. I would just replace this text right here. And that, from there, once I get those files from either CyberDuck, if I'm using Mac, or WinSCP, if I'm using Windows, I would bring them onto my local system and upload these to Canvas. And that is part 1. Moving on to part 2 here. You'll see that we're using another word count program from, once again, coming from the Apache.org website. And you can find that link down here. Instead of version 1.0, you're going to go to 2.0. From here, I would normally exit Cloudera and open PuTTY or terminal, which I could do, which I'm doing if I do the terminal here, basically I would follow the same steps, but just so transition is a little easier, I'll just go ahead and do this here, just so you can see kind of the roundabout what you'd be doing from here. So basically, we're going to get this MAMLS book again. This time you would do it on your local machine. Same thing as we had here earlier. Copy that, create the text file, mammals.txt. And we want to copy that mammals.txt file into HDFS. We would follow the similar steps as above, basically moving that file. Put is the function that we would use. Moving that file to HDFS. From there, we would run this word count program. And just as before, we would go to that address, copy this code here, basically all that code, coming all the way down to here. We would copy all this. We would go to our Eclipse, or since you'll be on your local machine, if you prefer IntelliJ or another IDE. From there, you would go and same process, file, new, project, project name, and then you would go over to libraries and do the same process, external jars, Cloudera, and then libraries folder right here, and then once again, file system, user, library, just kidding. File system, user, lib, Hadoop, client, and all of these jars right here once again. And so we would copy all those and finish and all that fun stuff. So I've already done this here. You can see word count to Java, same thing. Once again, go to source, right click, new, class. It'll give you the empty class. Copy that file contents that you found online right here. We're going to save, and then we're going to right click again, export, and when we export, we want to export as a jar file. wcount2 is how I saved mine, and we'll click finish and it'll create that jar file from me. Once I get that, I'm going to move on from here. So I'm going to run this just as I did before. So as you saw earlier, except for this time, what I want to do is I want to make this word count 2 jar. And I'm using user Cloudera, mammals, and I believe I called this word count 2. Let me double check. Once again, like I said, double check what your main class is going to be, this one right here. So yes, word count 2. And then user Cloudera mammals.text. I want this to go to word count v1 output. And so this time I'll just say v2, so we create a new folder so we can find it. And from here, press enter, and much of the same will happen. We'll start this MapReduce program. Once this gets running, like I said earlier, you can track this and actually find a progress bar, which is useful sometimes if you're trying to monitor like a much larger query or job. And so we'll paste and go here. It'll connect me to Hadoop. It'll show me the application. You can see right here it's running. It'll show me map progress. And it'll show me reduce progress. As you can see, it's 0, 0. Now you'll see 100. And this will update into this bar as well. And then from there, once this is all done, what we'll do is the same thing as before. We'll save the output as a text file using the steps that we followed from above. And then get the output file, which is that text file, and the jar file, and then take both of those and put them on Canvas. And that is the end of example 2.